and then from current slide. All right, so we'll get started today. You should have your notes out. We will get through a good bit of this today. And again, we're going to be talking about a guy named Napoleon. Do y'all know who Napoleon is? Not Napoleon Dynamite, no. Napoleon Bonaparte. What do you know about Napoleon just right off the bat without reading what it says right there? Yeah, what besides what it says right there? Is what? Yes. What else do you know besides his name that I have stated 3 times? Again, I know you can all read. So what do you know besides what is on the screen? He is dead at this moment, yes. He what? He won some battles. That's a good guess. Someone said he's short. He was. The myth is that he was about 5'3". Even your textbook says that he was 5'3". He was actually somewhere around 5'6" or 7", which is the average height of a male during the French Revolution. The reason why that he is considered short is obviously because he's not 6 foot tall, but also because the French were hated by the British. You want to know why? This guy whooped everybody's tail back then. So they pretty much all hated Napoleon. You know, it's kind of like people that hate LeBron because he whoops everybody's tail. Wouldn't it just be worse that he got whooped by the British? Well, he's not because he's 5'6". But like, if you make a lot. Oh, if you're making up. Well, yeah, I got you. If they said it, yeah, I guess. But they didn't want to admit that they got beat at all. But they wanted to make him look as bad as they could so that British cartoonists at the time would depict him as being this really, really short guy. And he, like I said, he was not George Washington by any sense, but he wasn't super small. Napoleon was born on an island off the coast of Italy called Corsica. At 9 years old, he was sent to military school. And in 1785, at the age of 16, he graduated and became a lieutenant in the artillery. He would fight during the Revolution and side with the Jacobins. Now, remember, the Jacobins were a group during the French Revolution. What were they doing to most people during this time? They were murdering them, you know. During the Reign of Terror, they were supported by Maximilien Robespierre. So he was on the right side because if he supported the Jacobins, means what didn't happen to his head. It didn't get cut off. Okay, so he made it through the French Revolution, the main part of it, the more radical parts. And early on in his time as a artillery lieutenant, in 1795, a chance for glory happened. He kind of got lucky. Some military successes really helped him rise in popularity. He had the opportunity pretty much of a young military star's life when this revolutionary group tried to overthrow the revolution. People that were supportive of the king in 1795 tried to rise up and take back France. Napoleon comes in, outguns the pro-Louis uprisings, and becomes what we would call the savior of the hour, or the hero of the hour, the savior of France. He becomes very popular because of this. They appoint him to the general of the French army in 1796 because he became so popular. And he went on to have some military success against the Kingdom of Sardinia in Italy and the Austrians. He swept through Italy and defeated them, and then on to Austria and defeated them. His next target would be Egypt, where the British were. And so he goes down to Egypt where the British are, and he actually gets his butt whooped. But you don't ever hear about it, and neither did the French people. French people never learned that he was defeated. So what happened to his popularity? Stayed there. Stayed the same. Never was it learned by the French people that he lost to Horatio Nelson and the British troops. So he managed to keep it out of the news and keep it out of these people's ideas. Of course, that would never happen today, right? You know, somebody loses a battle, we know at the instant. Somebody loses a game, we know at this instant. So his military success has made him extremely popular. Think back to what we studied in the French Revolution. economic crisis, food shortages, people were getting their heads cut off. France isn't in a very good state. Very chaotic, very out of control. Well, in 1799, the government in charge, the National Assembly, the people that had been in charge of the French Revolution, have lost control and lost touch with the people. The revolution is not very well supported. The government's not supported by the people. And Napoleon took this opportunity to his advantage. He in 1799 leads a coup d'etat. If you ever see that word, that's what that means. That's how you pronounce it, coup d'etat, or a sudden overthrow of the government. He shows up with his army from Egypt and basically tells the government, you can leave now or be killed. So they do. They leave. And in doing so, the remaining lawmakers dissolve the government and set up a new one, something called the French consulate. The three consuls would have all the power in France, three different leaders. Guess who was the first consul? Napoleon. He took the title of first consul and assumed the powers of a dictator. Now, he wasn't the emperor yet, but he will be soon. He's going to use something called a plebiscite election or plebiscite vote, where the vote of the people is held to approve different decisions. It's a yes or no vote. Do you approve it? Do you not? Very simple. And they were very much in favor of having Napoleon be their leader because of all the conditions like I talked about earlier. And we didn't talk about this earlier, but if you think logically, what style of government dominated Europe since we've been talking about them? Yeah, an absolute monarchy. So most kingdoms in Europe are absolute monarchs. What just happened to France's absolute monarch? It was turned into a constitutional monarch. Then what happened to him individually? And then he got executed, right? Okay, so he died. He lost power, then he died. If you are an absolute monarch outside of this, do you want your people to see what happened in France? No. So what do you need to do? You need to end the French Revolution. So while the French Revolution was going on, they were being attacked by outside influences. So Napoleon gains power, and his first job is to beef up the military. So he instituted some cutting-edge tactics to make the military that he was running much better than the ones by the other countries. He was being attacked by Austria and other places, and he wanted to make sure that this didn't happen or they were defeated more quickly. First thing they did intense drilling of soldiers. He was a military genius, easily rivaled Alexander the Great, Hannibal of Carthage, and Julius Caesar of Rome. And you'll see that when we talk about all that he conquered during his time. But he knew how to move his soldiers and when to choose to fight that would make him more successful. So he didn't fight in a battle that he didn't think he could win. That is not the way that he rolled. He used the cavalry behind the infantry to prevent deserters, meaning that they were, if they turned and ran, they would get killed. So you'd be better served to actually fight in the battle, because if you ran, you were guaranteed to die because the cavalry would take you out. He was an artillery specialist, so he used his artillery to destroy the center of the enemy lines. So they constantly were bombarded with cannons, and it destroyed the center lines. Again, traditional warfare, everybody walked up in a line and shot and blah, 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 just simple things like that. Well, he tried to disrupt the organization of that style of warfare. He taught his men to live off the land. This one you actually do need to remember, okay? because it's going to come back up here in just a minute. He taught them to live off the land rather than carrying supplies with them. So they never had to carry food, water, those things with them. When they got to a place, they just took whatever they needed from the place they conquered. Okay? Just remember that point. And then lastly, they used the cavalry to strike from behind. So they would wrap around behind people and attack on all fronts. Do you not have your notes? Did you not have any, or do you just didn't bring them with you? Did you ever have some, or you just don't have them with you? Are they in your locker? Okay. Something else that he did is he opened education to everyone. So again, something y'all are so glad about, right? Gage even said he was glad to have free public education. He loves it. Okay. And so education was opened up to everyone, meaning that more equality was provided. Also, they instituted a meritocracy where you were promoted based on how hard you worked instead of who you knew. So nobility was thrown out, or an aristocracy was thrown out. Well, that's what we do pretty much now, for the most part. Yeah, there are definitely situations where who you know does help. I agree. But well, that's different than a meritocracy. Those people also don't have very good, they don't have great lives. But that's getting into a totally different thing. And in 1804, I said NN, he declared himself emperor and established something called the Napoleonic Code. So these are ways that he tried to improve France, make it better following the French Revolution, fixing the problems that had been plaguing France for a long time. He instituted, with the Napoleonic Code, better tax collection methods, better economic systems, just to get rid of the inefficiencies that had been going on. The way in which that he became emperor is one of the most unique stories. And for the most part, if you think about being declared emperor or being crowned king, what does that mean someone has to do? Either God has to give you power or the people, right? Someone's got to hand you power. And even then, if we do coronation, does the king or queen of Wilson put the crown on their own head? No, somebody else does it, right? So Napoleon, being the person he was, walks down the aisle of Notre Dame Cathedral, and the Pope is at the end. Now, the Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church in France. That's a huge organization. His job was to crown the new emperor. So Napoleon walks down there. He's supposed to kneel down. No. He takes the crown, puts it on his own head. He's a savage. What does that say about the power that Napoleon has? He's got all of it. Nobody's above him. He crowned himself emperor. Now, the people voted for him and made him emperor, but he crowned himself. He's got all the power. So a pretty unique story there for him. The Napoleonic Code that he instituted actually went against most of the French Revolution ideas. They had established freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, all these different ideas. They had abolished slavery, instituted some women's rights. Guess what he did? Took them all back. Okay? Napoleonic Code that's still in use today limited free speech and the press. Restricted rights of women. Sorry, not me, it's him. And reestablished slavery in the French colonies. One of the reasons why? Colonies are very much money makers. Slavery is cheap labor. Actually, it's free labor. So you can make a lot more money off free labor than you can cheap labor. Now, here's the reason why he did all of it. People grew tired of the chaos of the Reign of Terror, the issues of the French Revolution. They just grew weary of all the non-organization, the non-stability. So he brought stability and order to revolutionary France. Now, again, he's a military genius, so we can't not talk about his military success. So we definitely got to talk about the Napoleonic Wars. Yes. Some of it. Yeah, not all of it. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yes, I agree. Yeah, some of it. Yeah. What? Well, not in France, though. Yeah. So Napoleon, as you can see on the map, came to dominate most of Europe during this time. He did this through warfare. He was almost unbeatable. Now, we know he did lose at least once, but he was almost unbeatable. And when he took over a place, he usually put someone in charge that was related to him, brother, half-brother, stepbrother, and that's how all these places came under his control. Of course, we grow tired of these people ruling over these areas. So the people in these areas eventually rose up and decided to fight back against Napoleon and the people in charge, or the people he had put in charge. That's going to get into another debate of nationalism later on. But the idea is that Napoleon was trying to conquer all of Europe. He had already abandoned the New World. Age of exploration, everybody wanted to go to the Americas and get colonies and all that. He had abandoned all that. In 1803, he sold the Louisiana Purchase territory to the United States. In the early 1800s, we'll talk about next week, he gave up all his colonies because he just didn't want to fool with them, and there was a lot of uprisings there. So he's just worried about conquering Europe. Well, the people didn't want him to have all that power. And so Russia, Austria, Sweden joined together to fight against him. They create what's called the Third Coalition. This group was created to stop Napoleon from gaining any more land in Europe. Of course, Napoleon met this challenge with his usual boldness. In a series of brilliant battles, he crushed his opposition. Again, he was a military genius. All those tactics we talked about earlier, the commanders of the enemy's armies could never predict his next move and often took heavy losses. In time, Napoleon's battlefield successes forced the rulers of Austria, Prussia, and Russia to sign peace treaties, and it basically led him to build the largest empire since the Romans. You can see it. But he had not conquered a couple territories. United Kingdom and Russia. Well, he decides that's a good idea to go after Russia. What do you know about Russia? It's a huge country. Yep. They're crazy. It's stinking cold there. That's true too. Yeah, it's ridiculously cold in Russia. And so those two things are going to come back into play. It's huge, expansive land, and it's very cold. So here is the path that they took into Russia. Okay? It's going to prove to be his fatal move. And in terms of history, remember these things about Russia because they don't go away. It's cold there, they have a lot of people, and they have a lot of land. And one thing that they don't care about is losing. One, they just eat losses like it's nobody's business. What I mean by that is they've got so many people and so many resources, they don't care. They'll just give you the things that you want and just move on. So this is going to prove to be his fatal move in a couple ways. He amasses an army of 420,000 men to invade Russia. But the Russians are going to use a very unique strategy to defeat Napoleon. No. What do you think's going on in here, Gage? What's happening in the picture? Yeah, it looks like there's some burning of buildings going on. Napoleon's here in the middle. Anybody else got another guess of what's going on? Tim? Did they what? It's kind of what it looks like he's upset. That's not it, but that's a good guess based off the picture. No, this is Moscow. And Moscow is burning to the ground. But guess who didn't burn it to the ground? Napoleon. The Russians did. They used a policy called the scorched earth policy to defeat Napoleon. This policy said that they would burn down everything in the path of the army. Now, why does this matter? What did Napoleon's army use to survive? Exactly. They live off the land, and if there's nothing to live off of, guess what the army doesn't have? Food, water, supplies. So he's trekked all the way into Russia to defeat them, and now he has no food. He has no water. Supply lines aren't as deep as we have them today. You know, we'll fly in food, right? They can't do that. There's no airplanes. Okay? So the Russians knew that the wintertime would really get the French troops. Here's the issue. Napoleon doesn't care. He still thinks he can win. So he waits it out. So for months, he's sitting on Moscow waiting on the Russians to come back. And they have no food. They have no shelter. And eventually he says, okay, I give up. We lose. Let's go home. So all along the way, they're killed by frostbite, disease, and attacks from the Russians. Yeah, just picking them off as they head back. Exactly. Do what? Yes. It's yes. They were just waiting for them to retreat, like when the storm closes in on Modern Warfare, and they picked them off as they got back. Of the amount of troops he took in, how many troops did he take in? Yeah, 420,000 troops. Sorry. I don't know if I said this. I thought it was on the screen. Anyways, they lost 400,000 troops. So he went in with 420, came out with 20. That's a big loss. That's a major L, right? It's about like some of the L's I've taken in basketball. Okay? So here's Napoleon without his army. After the defeat in the invasion of Russia in 1814, Paris was taken by the Russians, Prussians, and Austrians. And they decide that they don't want to kill Napoleon. Got too many ties to too many people that are in charge. That they are going to exile him on the island of Elba to never return to France and never be heard from again. And that's the end of the story of Napoleon. ... Or is it? Napoleon's coming back. Spoiler alert, it's not the end. It's not. Okay, so Thursday we'll learn a little bit more about Napoleon's story, but so far you know at least some of the events, ideas from his life and his time during the French Revolution. Yes, sir. Yeah, it wasn't just him. It was, but he would have had a nice little place to live. He would have had a little chateau, people to take care of him. Yeah. It just, it's not really Napoleon though, right? Like, he wants more than that. So we'll see what else he gets. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. I know, right? Like it's an early retirement, but
going from having all the power to that is not the best thing.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lose all his power. All right, go to Schoology for your assignment. To what? Hit escape. Go to Chrome. Yep. Mm-hmm. Go to over the other way. Keep going. Over one, back one. There. Okay. So today you are going to create a time capsule. You know what a time capsule is? Yes. You place things in a time capsule so that you can remember it later on. Well, we're going to do one for the French Revolution. You can't download it yet because it's not on the thing. I don't know why. It was for every other, or for the class that I created in, and when I transferred it over, it wasn't there. No big deal. I'll get it there in just a second. Scroll down just a little bit, Evan. Or up, sorry. Okay, it says, as you have learned about the French Revolution the past few days, you are going to create a time capsule and save things from this time period that will help you explain this event in the future. Build a capsule with pictures of items, writings, and events that help you remember the French Revolution. You must have at least 5 items. So over the course of the things that we've talked about, whether it was the causes, whether it was the radicalness of the actual French Revolution, or even Napoleon's time period, then you have plenty of things that you could add to the time capsule that help you remember it. Okay? Once you have your pictures of anything that helps you remember the French Revolution, scroll down a little bit, Evan. Evan, scroll down. When you finish having your 5 pictures, you need to explain one item, like why you picked that. Not all 5 of them, just one. So if you were to pick a pitchfork, because we talked about how people were getting stabbed with pitchforks, you could put in there, I put a pitchfork in there because I remember when the women were stabbing guards with pitchforks. Those crazy women. You can put anything in this time capsule. It's huge. It's a magic time capsule. Okay? Any picture of anything from the French Revolution. Any questions? When she gets back. Okay? If you have any questions at home, send me an email. And if not, have a great day.